So Anne is a co-founder and CEO of Canopie, a digital maternal mental health company making mental health a standard part of perinatal care through their universal low-cost solution. Before Canopie, she spent 5 years leading maternal health organizations in East Africa, most recently as the COO of an award-winning social enterprise that uses technology to improve maternal and child nutrition. She has worked in global health for the State Department, USAID, and Massachusetts General Hospital, and she received her BA in International Relations and Affairs and Philosophy from William & Mary, and her master's degree from Tufts University. And Anne is channeling her passion and expertise in maternal health and personal experiences with mental health conditions as a mom to address the enormous care gap. So thank you so much again for taking the time to share with us today, Anne. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. Well, I'm so excited to combine two loves of mine, entrepreneurship and William and Mary. So thank you so much for having me. And I'm really excited just to, hear from you guys, the students, and answer all of your questions. And I can talk a little bit about what would be the best thing to start off by talking about. Canopy or?
Yeah, so I'll hand it over now to you, and I'll give you time to share what Canopy is, and so however you want to do that.
By the way, I was 08, not 00. Not that that makes me sound any less old, but I was just putting it out there. Yeah, so Canopy, well, as you guys can tell, it's not that I have not been an entrepreneur in the traditional sense since, for most of my career. I came out of William and Mary really focused on working in international diplomacy, international relations. Although I did really have a strong interest also in global health specifically. Have always been really interested in health and nutrition. I mean, first, maybe I'll quickly talk about, what Canopy is today. And then if we want to talk a little bit more about kind of the journey to get there, that works for me, if that works for you guys. So Canopy, we work in the healthcare space. We are identifying at-risk expecting moms who are at risk of developing a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. That's the most common and costly complication of childbirth and becoming a mom. But a lot of maternal mental health conditions are preventable, and that's really our main focus, is identifying people who have elevated risk factors and getting them care before really they are identified by the system, which is typically after they become a mom in the kind of 1 year by a pediatrician or an OB. And yeah, I mean, I would say that a lot of Canopy, the way we designed Canopy and thought about what was right to do was informed by my global health experience, definitely not by the US healthcare system, which really, wants solutions, wants startups like Canopy to be fitting in a different way, in a much more traditional way. A lot of healthcare companies are doing things like making virtual treatment more accessible, like virtual therapy, or even, virtual nutrition, or whatever it is. They're doing things virtually, but it still fits into the same, what's called fee for service, where basically a doctor or a provider submits a claim to health insurance company saying, I did this service for this person, pay me now. But it's not based on how well they did most of the time. Most of the time it's not based on any outcomes, did I do the best thing for the patient in the most cost-effective thing for them or the system? Did I take into account these other factors that influence quality of care? 80 something percent of the way healthcare gets paid for is through a fee for service model like this. And for me, working in global health, working in contexts where there wasn't really the luxury to spend a ton of money or waste a ton of money on waiting until people got sick and treating them, because in some of the countries I've worked in, you don't have enough doctors, you don't have enough providers, there aren't treatment options for people. I really wanted to focus on how do we improve outcomes and reduce costs by doing more earlier, just doing prevention. Prevention is much, 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 much more effective and cost effective than waiting too late. So we have what we call a digital platform, but it's basically a way that our customers, who are health insurance companies and big health systems, that are on the hook for paying for the patient's care in some way. Like if you guys have ever heard of Kaiser Permanente, that's an example of the kind of health system we work with. So our customers are them, but we have our users, or the people that we impact or engage, are expecting moms and new moms. So basically we have kind of two customers, which is its own challenge. And they engage with Canopie services almost entirely through a software, not through services. We do provide some services, but they're all things that we can deliver to large populations, like virtual classes or support groups, or connecting people to treatment or additional services if they need that, not providing the actual services ourselves. Yeah, so does that was okay.
Really quick, if you would like to, I don't know if you have, I've seen your website, for Canopie, but if you have anything that you'd like to share, you can also do a quick demo or just like a run through of what it looks like to maybe be a customer, or you can even do your website as well if you'd like to share that.
Sure. Yeah, well, I can sort of walk through the process with this. Can you guys see this one slide? I just pulled it up.
Yes.
Okay. So if you could kind of think about Canopie's the services that we provide through our platform, that kind of fit into 5 buckets. We do screening, and we don't just ask people how they're feeling in the moment, but we're looking at social determinants of health. We're looking at other risk factors that might be affecting how someone is doing, not just how are you feeling in this moment, but are there other factors that are influencing your well-being that Canopie can then help take care of? Then triage. So basically we bucket people into different risk categories, like categories of need. And we do this for ourselves and our partners, the health plans or health systems, whoever is on the hook for, at the end of the day, making sure that that person is being taken care of. But then we also provide some of those services I mentioned. And then we provide some level of care. So we've got a program that we based on research and that we customize according to gestational age. So that means how pregnant someone might be, or how postpartum someone might be, and other factors that are influencing where they are in their quote unquote motherhood journey. And that's all cost effective and scalable. And all of this is in English and Spanish. And then, a lot of times what happens is that moms will fall through the cracks after they have a baby. So they might at 6 weeks go see their OB for a physical checkup, but then not see anybody for a really, really, really long time, and sometimes not until the next baby. And so through our digital platform, we're able to check in, collect more information, and connect them with additional services that are affecting their mental health and well-being overall, if need be. And then report we do have a real-time dashboard that our customers see, that keeps us really accountable too. It's not just we tell them what people are doing or how they're doing and if they're actually engaging in our services, but they can actually see on their own dashboard like what a patient, or if it's a health plan, a member is actually doing with Canopie, which really builds trust and credibility. It's not just we're not asking them to believe our story. We're asking them to believe what they can see for themselves through that reporting. Yeah. And so, that's probably this easiest way to explain at a high level what the solution is.
Thank you, Anne, for sharing that with us. And now that we kind of have a better idea of what it is that you do with Canopie, we're going to move into some questions. So for this portion, I'm going to ask everyone in the audience to pull out your phones again. And we're going to be using Mentee, so you can either look this up on your browser or use the QR code if that's easier. And just to double check, Anne, you can see what's on the screen.
I can. Should I be looking at the chat?
No, just the screen is okay.
Just the screen. Okay, cool. Yes.
For those of you online, you can also join in, and your answers should pop up as well. All right.
Well,
So we have a lot of likes, so I'm going to assume that everyone's in the Mentee. Okay, let's go to our first question for the audience. All right, so we're just going to ask everyone, what comes to mind when you hear entrepreneurial thinking? We have some responses here, and as we look at these responses populating in the word cloud, are there any here that resonate with you and your definition of entrepreneurial thinking?
Oh, I think these are all really great. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I love these because they're really different parts of the entrepreneurial journey. And I would say something that I think is going to challenge this a little bit, because I see that innovation is the most common, or innovation or innovative. Those are kind of like the most common responses, right? And I'd say that is important. But I think what I have realized is that a good idea is an innovative idea, or innovative quote unquote solution is important. But what keeps me going, the kind of the entrepreneurial thinking that I have to have every day, is not necessarily related to any innovations in my solution. It's much more in the operationalizing the thing, because you can have the best possible idea in the world, but the things that really matter are for success are definitely problem solving being goal or outcome oriented. So really like what is, so some of these I'm just talking about here, taking these, you know, I think balancing risk, especially in depending on what field you're working in. I mean, risk in healthcare is has a very different meaning, because you are you're accountable in a very different way. But you know, I think that like the truth is that, I mean, entrepreneurship is absolutely exciting. I see someone put exciting here, but it's absolutely, I thought I saw grit here. There it is. Whoever put grit is I think, to me, the most critical part of entrepreneurial thinking, because most days are very soul crushing for every entrepreneur for a very long time. And you have to just, the grit is what allows you to somehow believe that you're still going to do it. You're still going to succeed, and keep going despite the many signals that you get all the time that that things aren't going to work out for you. And that's not just, you know, we're what's called a seed stage company, which is, you know, we've got revenue, some customers, but we're still early in our entrepreneurship journey. But I believe that, you know, there's a book, I think it's called Shoe Dog, is the founder of Nike, talking about Nike's story. And there's one chapter where he's just like talking about Nike as if it's a company that's about to, you know, fall apart, but it's already like a billion-dollar company or something like that. And I think that's founder's mindset and entrepreneurial thinking, to me, is one sort of feeling like you're not quite there all the time. You're always not quite there. And how do you keep going? Because you will always get signals that your thing is not going to be as successful or do what you want it to do. So these are super, super wonderful. But I would say the thing that I think sometimes entrepreneurial thinking or the entrepreneurship mindset, I would say grit is a huge, huge, huge part of it.
Yeah, and as we can see, that ties back to one of our main pillars. And thank you for your responses, guys. And now I'm gonna jump a little. You know, it's Charter Day, so I have to ask about your time at William and Mary. So tell us about your time at William and Mary. What experiences do you remember fondly, and have shaped your professional career?
Well, I mean, I loved William and Mary. I had I have what has always been important to me is having an impact, and I think that William and Mary students are very impact and service oriented students overall. And you know, the most it sounds like the student organization probably was renamed, or that I led, had the biggest kind of tie into the rest of my career. It was a hunger and community focused organization. We worked a lot with the homeless populations in and around the Williamsburg area, and tried to connect kind of food and nutrition security to like a big, I don't know, to events on campus. So we had different, brought in different speakers kind of, and did events around food, nutrition, and hunger issues. And of course that I was working on health, nutrition, and vulnerable populations for the majority of my career. I've always, so I would say that William and Mary really reinforced that part of my personality, or something that I really care about. And I just think that's such a special part of William and Mary is that, you know, the student population really cares a lot about doing good and doing right. I think we have William and Mary. I looked at this recently. At one point, I think we had like a very high proportion of students going into Peace Corps, one of the higher ones for our size school and, public school. And I would say that kind of service and impact mentality was absolutely reinforced at William and Mary. And truthfully, these are, I did go to grad school. I have amazing friends. I love my friends from grad school too, but I would not say that they are better fit friends for me than the ones I made at William and Mary. So really treasure your relationships with your friends, because you're surrounded by incredible, just incredible people, and they're going to be your friends forever. I mean, my best friend is someone I met at William and Mary, and she's, so she will be my best friend for the rest of our lives. So I really, cherish those relationships and those experiences about like what makes the William and Mary culture so special, and how you can really take that that absolutely fuels my grittiness, I guess you could say, is that impact and that like really doing something powerful for the world mindset. Yeah.
Yeah, I can say at my time here at William and Mary, I've made a lot of good friends, a lot of them on the Hub community team. So I'm glad to hear that. And I think that ties well into our next question about defining success, because you do need that support and those friendships to help build you up and be able to go after the projects that you care about. So this next question we have for the audience, how would you define success in your life? And Anne, as you look at the responses on the screen, if you can think about similarities, maybe differences of your current definition of success. Right, have most people responded? We have quite a few. All right, and so based on our short responses here, do you see any similarities, any differences about it within your current definition of success?
I just think these are really beautiful and really they are clearly examples of how you guys are just like got your priorities straight. Really, I think these are just really wonderful, and I would say that they all really, every single one of these resonates with me very, very deeply. And when it comes to entrepreneurship, I think that the thing that is so valuable about whatever context you're in, building something that you care about, that feels good to you, that you feel, whatever it is, it can be small, it can be within something, it can be outside of a structure, it can be anywhere, that just feels like it is your contribution to yourself or your community or the world, like whatever level that is just such a great way to, I think, achieve some of these goals. Like entrepreneurship is definitely not a good way to get rich. You're much, much, much better off having a stable job and investing in, you know, entrepreneurship. Of course, you can become very wealthy, and you know that can be a great and totally good, fine motivator to grow and to be, you know, successful and to have a really successful company. But you know, I think the reason to do it is probably much more related to the things that I'm seeing on this screen.
And just follow up, this is a very general question, but what influences your definition of success? Like very generally.
Success, like professional success or personal success, or what do you feel?
You can do both.
Yeah, I mean, somebody here had showing up well. I think that was the second response, and that really resonated with me. I mean, being present for the people in your life. I have a 5-month-old and I have a 4-year-old, and they need a lot from me, and different, really different ways. And so just being there for them is, and being present when they're with me is the, if I can do that, you know, because I don't have a ton of time, then I feel like I have been successful, and I feel unsuccessful when I am not able to do that, which unfortunately does happen quite a bit. And so it's, you know, always trying to find that balance. And then professionally, you know, I think it's balancing expectations and growth. You know, I was a little naive, I think, when I started out in healthcare on how hard it would be to work in healthcare. But truthfully, we make progress all the time, every day. And it doesn't always look, you know, you have to sometimes look for it. But you know, it's the one foot in front of the other, and it's the getting to the next step every day that feels like success for me. And ultimately, of course, I want Canopie to be a household name among at least our target population and our target customers. Like I really care about having a big impact at scale. But the day-to-day is not really about that. The day-to-day is just one foot in front of the other. That's and really making sure my team feels supported and appreciated. Like that's a really big thing for me too.
I think that ties into a question that we ask every guest speaker, which is, which one of our pillars of entrepreneurial thinking would you want to work on leveraging more? And then we'll have the audience also respond this question. We can move to the next question on the team.
So, you know, in terms of the pillars, what do I want to work on more?
Yeah. What do you want to work on leveraging?
Like,
and why? So, yeah, and then the pillars are also in the chat.
Okay, so like, where do I feel like I could improve? Yeah, that's a good one. All of them are really good. I kind of put the 3. I'm gonna pick 3 because I can't really pick one. Failing wisely, improv, and risk for me. And those are 3 things that I would say I constantly struggle with. The other things are actually okay for me, but yeah, I'm excited to hear what other people put here. Interesting.
Looks like right now, openness to risk is the highest one that people want to work on leveraging.
That doesn't surprise me at all, knowing what I know about William and Mary students. Oh man, yeah, totally. Yeah, it's really hard to be a perfectionist in when you're trying to create something new, because it's just never gonna be what you want it to be. And that's a big that's been a big learning for me. And surrounding yourself with people, because we can't all do everything, but knowing how to find people who complement you, who can do the thing well that you struggle with, and making sure you listen to them, I think is, for me, that's been really important. Like, not just having a bunch of people who are not open to risk around at the table.
I think it's important not to have just yes men, but also people who will push you and compliment you, as you said, in the areas that you're not so good at. But it looks like here everyone has perfected failing wisely, which I find impressive. Yeah, that checks out with preliminary students. All right, so right now, we're gonna open up to Q&A. So if the audience, if you guys have any questions, we have a mic. So yeah, anyone have any questions for Anne?
Hi, Anne. Can you hear me?
Yes, they can.
Thanks for being here and sharing time with us today. You've mentioned, as you've been talking a couple times, about this idea of impact at scale. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about what it means to have an impact at scale versus maybe an impact in a smaller setting. What are the differences that are required to make an impact at scale versus with a few or a smaller population?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great um it's a great question. It's really about do you have a business model that is based on volume, or do you have a business model that is based on um you know uh smaller market size, but maybe a higher revenue potential? So um and then making sure that your service is something that you can do at a high quality at scale. So for us, that really means, do we have the flexibility in our contracts? So if we have a contract with a customer, and have we built in enough flexibility to not only deliver the service to a big population, but to make sure we can also add in other things, like we're not cutting it so close that we can't add other things to make it better quality or higher quality, if that makes sense. So with our business, because it's a technology-based business, technology is a really, 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 really important like way to make something available at scale and maintaining quality. And by that I mean like digital interventions in particular, or anything, of course, like software based. So we have basically, a challenge of introducing more costly services that are also more scarce in just the right way, so that we can still reach a huge number of people at any given time, and then also do what we say we're going to do. And for those things aligned to have a big, like to do what we intend for our service to do, which is to prevent or treat a maternal mental health condition. So that's how we think about it. And it's not like, not every company should or needs to be really, really big. Like that's not but for us, that's actually an important because we're working at a population level, that's an important part of our business. Like we had to align those things.
Thanks. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Cool. Great question.
I'm gonna throw it to you. You're an ultimate Prisma player.
Hi, I have a few questions about the app. So how long did it take to build the app? And what was it like building it as someone who didn't come from a background in computer science or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, I love that question. First of all, I do not recommend building an app if you can avoid it. And the only reason we ended up doing anything with an app is because it's what moms are on their phone all hours of the day and night. You can be nursing your baby and you're on your phone. You are running after a bunch of kids, you're on your phone. Everything is just on the go. And so we had to do an app, and it's just the expectation these days. And in healthcare, everything happens through your phone now. So if we had had any choice, I think we would not have built an app, because we're also inundated as people with our phones as well. So it was a very difficult decision. But we did end up doing it. And we the way we did it was so scrappy. So first we used a low code app builder to even just like test, like, are people going to use this? Like, how are they going to engage? Like, what is this even a thing? Like, and so we just researched companies that were could help you put an app out there. And even that was a ton of work and was actually a little bit more technical than, it was like a stretch for, the dinosaurs behind Canopie. But that allowed us to get something out there within, get out there, because we were partnering with pediatricians in the American Academy of Pediatrics at that point, quickly. So just, something. And then from there, we weren't really able to test, can we sell this with this version? Because our customers are, huge companies. And so then we had to, we actually, while we had made the decision to build what's called a native version of the app, which is like, we write our own code, we do it everything from the ground up. We used a slightly more technical app builder for a second version while we tried to sell that as we were building the native version of our app. And I would, all in all, to get from that like initial prototype to a native app that basically did the things that we wanted it to do was about a year, maybe 15 months or so. It wasn't that long once we decided to do it, because we actually had a very long R&D process first, where we were actually just doing studies of our intervention through different means. But then, and then after that, it's the good thing about that, it was horrible for me, but my co-founder luckily was a lot more comfortable with putting something out there that we weren't like super excited about. Like it wasn't everything we wanted it to be, but it allowed us to test some important things quickly. And the main thing that we wanted to control for, to have quality around, was the intervention itself, not necessarily the interface or the version of the app. That became more important later, but that's when, in terms of the pillars and kind of the discussion we've been having, like, that was an example of a little bit of push-pull. I wasn't comfortable quite getting it out. She really pushed me to say, no, focus on what matters here and what feedback we need, and let's just get it out there, get information. So that was really helpful. Every time and it meant that ultimately we saved time, because we had so much user research and so much user insight by the time we actually had the kind of full version of our app, that we didn't waste time building something that wasn't, what were pretty confident would work at that point. And as non-technical people, I mean, listen, I actually, and one thing I was hoping to convey today is that you don't need to have like entrepreneurial thinking, however, is much more important than having a particular skill set, I would say. And I think that within the pillars where I feel like people fall, when we've made early hires and they haven't quite worked out, it's tolerance for ambiguity, I think is really, it feels pretty binary to me. A lot of these other things I think do really happen on a spectrum. You kind of like are in and out, and it sort of depends on the context and what else is going on. But I would say that, the ambiguity, and that's unrelated to, any skill set, that really, to me, I feel like is a personality trait, like people's preferences in the workplace. Like, do I like to have a big structure around me and a boss and an HR person, and I need to know what's going to happen next week, and I need to know that I can take a week off in 6 months, that people will very quickly understand how important that stability is, or that how important that is to their mental health and well-being versus not. So I would say the technical skill set, not having a particular technical skill set, was certainly annoying, but it also means that I can, for example, explain to customers in very clear and layman's terms what we do, rather than focusing on the technology itself or the features. I can focus on other things. We all have, different strengths, and the best thing is, being able to find people around you who can complement you, whether it's the hard skills or the soft skills. But of course, there are many times when I wish I could have fixed some of our code, or there's a bug and nobody's up at midnight. So, that kind of thing, that would have been great. But I would say that like the most necessary ingredient for me was not any hard skills. It's been ambiguity, being okay with ambiguity.
Hi, Anne, this is Ray. Nice to meet you. You kind of already talked about this in the answer to the previous question on, finding technical collaborators, but how did collaboration play a role in your entrepreneurial journey? Like, was there any point where you were stuck at an impasse and you couldn't get through and you had to rely on others?
Oh, yes, definitely. I would say that, so I lived in Rwanda for a while, and there's a wonderful saying that I think to myself all the time. People say it sounds a lot better in Kenya, Rwanda, I'm sure, but we are each other's harvest. And the idea is that, I think that like a great partnership will grow anything 2-3 times, not a 20% improvement, but a 2, 3, 4, 5, 10x improvement. So like the collaboration is everything. And partnering is everything. Of course, like there have been many times when I brought in a partner to help us solve a particular issue, and it ended up not working at all. But when it has worked, it's been game changing for our company. Like one of our strategic, they started out as a customer, but they're a strategic investor. And there's so many leaps you'd have to make just hearing about this company and Canopie to think like, well, how do they even work together, except that they work with moms? They are a breast pump supplier. So they are a durable medical device company at their core, but they reach over 1 million, about 1.3 million expecting moms in their second trimester across the US. And we figured out a way They offer other services, which is why we started working together. But we also figured out that, they can introduce Canopie as part of their flow. Like they have a product that they offer these moms, and that is a very, very good way to get moms to download our app and to use our app, because they already have a trusted relationship with this breast pump marketplace. So, and I was there, they're in North Carolina. I was there, 3 days this week, working across all of their teams, their sales team, their marketing team, their ops people, their finance people. So that's an example of just being really open to the resources out there and not create anything that already exists. Not try to do it, to choose what you're going to do yourself and then not do things you can't do well, or that take too many resources away from the thing you do really well. Not having any ego about that. Like that has been really important for me. Like I could not do what they do. We could not do what they do. But it's a big competitive advantage that we have.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great answer.
Thanks. Great question.
Hi, so on the subject of collaboration and everything, do you have a co-founder? And if so, how did you decide it was time to bring in someone to work with? And how did you decide that you trusted them and they had the same amount of passion as you for what you were working on?
Yeah, so I do have a co-founder, and her name is Anne. She's an advisor with the company now. So we actually, did basically everything 50-50 for the first year, and then had decided we were going to focus on both the UK and the US, because she's based in the UK and I'm based in the US. And then ended up having a lot more traction in the US. So she kind of shifted her role. And that there was a huge leap of faith starting a company with someone, but we met through it kind of an accelerator, focused on research-based scalable solutions. And we were, she is a very close friend of me, and contributes to the company. But we went through a really challenging time when we were deciding, how to allocate our time and resources, and would she move to the US, would she stay in the UK, and so we ended up where we are now, and it's been the best situation for everybody. But I will say, how should I put this? Nobody does anything alone. Like entrepreneurs get a lot of credit. I think like the CEO will get a lot of credit, or I will get a lot of credit, but I never, ever, ever think I deserve that credit, because every single thing that has happened, in Canopie so far is the result of some collaboration, or some things coming together. And maybe I was more or less involved in that thing, but you also have to decide, especially as an early stage company, where are you going to focus and what resources are most necessary to get you to the next stage. And that changes, especially for early stage companies, wildly within the first few years. Like that's not something you can really predict. And so we're a pretty like common story, where just the company started growing in one direction and we needed another kind of location, skill set, focus to keep it going and keep growing. So that, it's not a lot of times people will talk about like co-founder. I don't know if you've talked about this yet in the hub, but if you do have a co-founder, and things don't go well or don't go as you originally intended, that can be for investors a red flag. It can be quite challenging for the company. You might not grow as much or grow as quickly, because you're kind of focused on sorting those issues out. I mean, generally, there are lots of things you can do when you're setting up a company to kind of protect everybody and everything from something really bad happening as a result of like changing positions or changing course when it comes to who actually started the company. But we are a rare case of people who did it with, did that kind of pivot with a lot of intention and love and trust in each other, and knowing that we would do the right thing for the other person, and that no matter what, we wanted Anne, we call her ADB to stay involved because she's so important to the kind Of soul of the company. But there are some really it's about like, for us, it was like, what kind of company do we want to be? What kind of organization do we want to be? We want to honor everybody who has contributed, whatever way, no matter when. But there are certainly that doesn't always happen. I feel like the co-founder, no matter what, whether it's a co-founder, advisors, your early team, whatever, that nobody can do it alone. Like nobody can and should do anything alone if you're starting something new. And so it's definitely, of course, trust is a really important element, but in terms of starting a company, you also just want to make sure you have accounted for all the possible ways in which things could go wrong. Like, what if Anne had been really upset by us focusing on the US instead of the UK, although she wasn't, because it was just kind of how things were like panning out, and had wanted to take the company down like that, that would have been really hard on Canopie, and would have been really, so it is about trust, of course, but it's also just being really smart about thinking through all the worst case scenarios when you start, instead of having to rely on relationships or rely on other things. You do want trust, but you also just want, to have agreed on all possible scenarios and to have that documented.
Thank you, Anne, for that thoughtful response. I know that a lot of times we can focus on I'm kind of trying to solve problems alone, but in that thought of like the lone wolf when it comes to entrepreneurs, I think our team is also an example of that. But as you said, it's really important to not only collaborate, but also know that there's a team behind you that can help, again, support each other in the ways that matter. So thank you so much for your time today, for your insights. It's been really interesting to learn about Canopie and your journey. I think you're doing really important work. So that concludes our guest speaker portion. So everyone can give Anne a round of applause.
Thank you, guys. It was just so wonderful. I hope I somehow get to see you all again, and just like, rooting for you in your, William and Mary and beyond journey. And yeah, just thank you so much for having me. It was just really nice thanks for letting me just talk and talk and talk.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye.
All right. Bye. So if everyone else could just stay for a couple more minutes for a few announcements, that would be great. So just a final few things before we wrap up. If you didn't get a chance to do so in the beginning, please check in. We'll probably move to that slide after. But for the last time, we will ask that you take out your phone. This QR code is a lot more important. Feedback, some of you know, we changed guest speaker up today, so it'd be really, really great if you could give us your real honest feedback to make programming like this better. And yeah, here are just some announcements of events that we have going on in the hub. So February 16th at 12, we have Rocket Pitch. And for those of you who haven't been to Rocket Pitch, this is where students just like yourselves go head to head and pitch their venture ideas. And it's kind of like Shark Tank style, and then an audience like you gets to vote on who the best pitcher is. And so that's a really cool opportunity, and lunch will be provided. February 21st at 12, we have Topic Talk, and we have Natalie Foley talking. This is kind of like this, in the sense that we have a guest who's coming either in person or virtually, and she talks more about her experience and what she does. And she'll be talking about crafting experiences. So this is another really cool opportunity to plug in. And then February 23rd, we have our next alumni guest speaker, which is Ken Fortner. So look out for that. But yeah, with that being said, please give us your honest feedback. It really helps us improve our programming. And thank you for coming out today.